This is Menkari Australia. Breaking news.
This is a breaking news update from Menkari News. We're coming to you live from Sydney, where former Prime Minister John Howard are holding a press conference following the shocking Bondi massacre. Stay tuned as we cover key developments from this unfolding situation.
Also, my anger at what happened in our country on Sunday. I think it has disabused everybody of this idea that it can't happen here. It can happen here. And it can happen here when forces of hatred are allowed to go unchecked. And there's little doubt that since October the 7th, 2023, not enough has been done by those who command authority and respect in our society to prevent, cauterise and denounce the spread of antisemitism. And I hope that this terrible event will be a wake-up call to those who've been asleep at the wheel on this issue. And before taking your questions, can I sound a positive note? And that positive note is to applaud the work of the New South Wales Police Force, the men and women, the boys in blue, as I've called them in the past, and we'll get into trouble for calling them that in the future. But they did wonderful work. They put their lives at risk. And of course, the standout in that department was that magnificent man who disarmed one of the evildoers. He deserves the praise that he's received all around the world. And of course, he is self-identified as a Muslim. That is a reminder that this is not about sectarian division. This is about pure hatred. And for the future, it ought to be about treating all Australians, not least the Jewish community of Australia, with equal respect. They are all deserving of the protection of our government. A civilised society is a two-way process. The citizen submits to the authority of the laws of society, and in return, society extends protection. Now that's broken down here, and it oughtn't to break down again, and we have to all work to make sure it doesn't.
Mr. Howard, who's specifically to blame among the leaders for the virulent anti-Semitism we've seen during the past 2 years in Australia?
Well, I don't think enough has been done by the Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, to prevent it. Now, I won't put it further than that, because clearly the people to blame for the murders are the murderers. That's self-apparent. But why didn't Penny Wong visit those areas of Israel that have been most directly assaulted by Hamas when she was there? Why has the Prime Minister earned the title I gave him earlier today of Mr. Yes, but maybe? I mean, he's equivocated. He went out of his way to recognise a state that's not ready for international recognition when he made the decision. He seemed to me to derive more satisfaction from that than he did in promoting our long-standing and harmonious relationship with the State of Israel. I'm ashamed of the fact that our relations with Israel have broken down. Israel has been an ally of Australia. And I remember on my very first visit to Israel, way back in the 1960s, of talking to some people in a hotel in Tel Aviv about the contribution of Australians at Beersheba and the recollection they had of the assistance rendered to the people of then Palestine.
Mr. Howard, what should... your position on the gun crackdown?
We'll take the lady, then the man. Yes.
What should Anthony Albanese have done instead?
Look, his greatest failure is not to provide the moral leadership that a Prime Minister can in denouncing anti-Semitism. The impression I had was that every time he got onto the subject, he would equate it with discrimination generally. Now, that might be okay if the context required it, but you've got to remember that the worst obscenity in mankind's history was the attempt of the German Nazis to exterminate an entire race, the Jewish people. And given that the Hamas attack of 2023 saw the largest Jewish death toll of any event since the Holocaust, you can understand the sensitivity of the Jewish people all over the world. I mean, I have very close relationships with Jewish people, but I'm not the only Australian and not the only section of Australia that I have close relations with. But on this issue, surely, after what happened, he could have said more.
Mr. Howard, can we please clarify your position on the national? Can we please clarify your position on National Cabinet's gun crackdown? And do you regret that Australia has allowed more guns to proliferate since the Port Arthur massacre?
Well, I'm not aware of, apart from a brief dot point presentation, as I left an interview at the Sky Studio, no individual promotion intended. I'm not aware of what that crackdown, as you call it, is. What I am aware of is that if the guns that my crackdown removed after Port Arthur had still been legally available, in other words, automatic and semi-automatic weapons, the death toll, gruesome though it was, would have been infinitely bigger.
Are Australia's gun laws fit for purpose? Are Australia's gun laws fit for purpose? Do you think it's time for further change?
Well, I think it's a matter for those now in power.
Mr. Howard,
I don't know what they're proposing, and until I do, it's hard to... I've literally been driven from one news place to another. So.
Mr. Howard,
I'm not trying to avoid the question. The lady...
Mr. Howard, should hate speech laws be tightened?
Well, it depends on what is proposed. I mean, any laws that discourage people from being hateful. Hate is the condition of the heart, bad condition. That should be condemned unequivocally. And I think the role of a leader, and I'm talking here about our current Prime Minister, the role of a leader is to set the tone. And I don't think he enthusiastically set the tone
Mr. Howard,
towards an attack on anti-Semitism.
Apologies. In New Zealand.
Now that man, yes.
In New Zealand, Mr. Howard, we saw major gun reform in 2019 following the terrorist attack there. Is there anything Australia can learn from New Zealand in terms of gun reform?
Well, I guess you can always learn from some other country. My understanding, and I could be wrong on this, and I'd hate to do any offence to the memory of Jacinda Ardern, but my understanding is what she did was to catch up with what we had done something like 20 years earlier. Now, I could be wrong on that.
I think
Do you regret that the National Firearms Register wasn't implemented after Port Arthur?
Oh, the firearms register, do I regret what?
That it wasn't implemented. That was a recommendation after Port Arthur. Obviously, the Albanese government says it's now going to fast track that. Do you regret
Well, it's a bit late. That's the answer to your question.
Would it have made a difference?
Look at it. Well, I'm not saying that. I don't know. I mean, can I say no sensible man or woman will say if you'd done this or that yesterday or Sunday would not have happened. But what you can say is that governments and individuals can do a lot to discourage the spread of prejudice, anti-Semitism, hatred of Jewish people. And I don't think the present federal government and the present Prime Minister have done enough in that area since 2023.
Mr. Howard, right now in Sydney.
Who are you?
I'm from 7 News, Serena and Delora.
How are you?
Right now in Sydney suburbs, we're seeing licensed gun owners with hundreds of guns in their possession. Does that erode the spirit of what you brought in after Port Arthur?
Well, the general observation I want to make about focus on guns, it's welcome always, provided it's designed to tighten existing laws, to eliminate loopholes. But I do not want this debate, post this horrible event, to be used, the focus on guns to be used as a pretext to avoid the broader debate about the spread of hatred of Jewish people and anti-Semitism. And I see in the behaviour of some people, not of course anybody in this room, see in the behaviour of some people a desire to use the issue of gun laws as a pretext for not talking. And I don't want that to happen, because that would be an evasion of responsibility. The responsibility of the government of the day is to denounce discrimination against a section of the Australian community and to do everything in the power of that government to prevent the spread of anti-Semitic behaviour.
Is this a test, Mr Howard, is this a test of leadership for the Prime Minister and for Prime Minister?
Look, I'm not in the business of setting tests of leadership. That's a matter for the parliamentary parties concerned. Can I say that I was heartened to see the New South Wales Premier and the newly installed Leader of the Opposition, Kelly Sloan, together. And I remember after Port Arthur, I invited Kim Beazley and Cheryl Kerno, who was then the Leader of the Australian Democrats. I invited them to accompany me to the first wreath-laying event following that terrible tragedy.
Mr Howard, should non-citizens be allowed to own guns? Should non-citizens be allowed to own guns?
Well, I would like some technical advice on that. I mean, it is true that there are too many guns in our community. There always have been, there always will be, because people ignore laws. And it's the potency of the weapon that was so drastically changed after Port Arthur. I repeat again, just imagine if one of those criminals had had access to an automatic or semi-automatic weapon, the potential for a much larger death toll.
And should there be a limit on the number of firearms you can own?
Well, once again, that would depend on the circumstances.
Do you support
Look, I am open to change it, but I am not in government anymore. Doesn't prevent me having opinions. But as to the minute, I respect the role of the states, and I think both the Premier of New South Wales and the opposition leader in New South Wales are taking this issue seriously, and I hope and trust all other state premiers are doing the same thing.
Do you support another amnesty? Do you support another amnesty like there was after Port Arthur, an amnesty or a
Well, I'll leave that to that. Those
so about the pretext of gun reform, do you think the Prime Minister is one such person hiding behind that pretext when he should be focusing on combating anti-Semitism?
Look, I certainly think he should have done more to fight anti-Semitism, a lot more. But he can't retrieve that lost ground. But what he can demonstrate is that he's no longer Mr. Yes, but maybe. And I think he's got to earn his stripes on that.
What is the evidence that this is a pretext to avoid talking about anti-Semitism rather than a good faith attempt to improve our government?
What is the pretext for what? No, I said I don't want it used as a pretext.
Is there any evidence that
Oh yes, the fact that people are talking about you. Got all these questions. I mean, that's pretty good evidence. That's what I call field evidence.
do you doubt
Any questions? I'm sorry, are you still going? I apologise.
The response after Port Arthur was unified, the Leader of Opposition and you later read together. But people have been very quick to criticise the Prime Minister. Do we not need a more unified response to this?
Oh, look, I don't want to place emphasis on an individual action of the Prime Minister. It's his collective failure over the last 2 and a bit years to do enough by words and deeds. And I've canvassed some of those issues already to demonstrate his detestation of anti-Semitism.
Mr. Howard.
From the Mankari News Australia newsroom, this is a developing story.
moment that you as Prime Minister were forced to stand in front of the press and the public in a bulletproof vest?
No, not particularly. I remembered that. And I said then that I regretted having worn the bulletproof vest. I did it on the advice of the police and my close personal advisor, Graham Morris, who said, if you do get shot, I've got to explain it to your wife and kids why it happened. And I remember it, and I felt embarrassed because I never felt unsafe when I was Prime Minister. I don't feel unsafe in this country, not in a political sense. But, and I want to believe that our country is still the decent, tolerant, outgoing, fair society we treasure the most.
Mr. Howard, why should a man who's not a farmer, who lives in the suburbs, have 6 licensed handguns? What's the practical use?
Well, I mean, perhaps you should direct that question to Mr. Minns.
I did yesterday.
Yes, and what did he say?
Well, he was saying they're looking at gun law reform, but they haven't looked at the detail yet. WA's got a limit of 10. You think Western Australia's limit of 10 handguns is a practical approach, which is
well, look, you go and talk to the member for Cogger a bit more about it.
Ben Long,
former member
for Ben Long. Well, should we have guns?
I don't have any guns.
Yeah.
I once had a battered German Luger brought home from the First World War, and somebody saw me playing with kids in the front yard. And they reported me to the police. They came up. No, I'm serious. They came up and said, "What's that Luger you got?" And I handed it over, and they said, "Oh." They had a look at it. I mean, it was rusted and battered and everything. In the habit of all Australian soldiers of World War I, my father or grandfather souvenired it and brought it home.
Mr. Howard, Susan Lee says the rise in anti-Semitic hate has rightly prompted questions about
what did she say?
The rise in anti-Semitic hate has prompted questions about the values of migrants. Do you agree?
What did she? Look, I'm very, very suspicious that inaccuracies can occur in repeating recently made comments at press conferences, and I don't want to. I've fallen into that trap before. I don't suggest for a moment you're setting the trap.
Mr. Howard, you mentioned that you felt safe after Port Arthur. Do you feel safe in this country right now?
Yes, I do, but I suppose when you get a bit older, you sort of. After Port Arthur, that was. I was in my 50s and I'm now 86, so you sort of get a bit. I don't know.
Mr. Howard, you mentioned Bondi from the Wall Street Journal. Could you please tell us, in your view, the importance of moving quickly on reform now by governments, whether that be on hate speech or whether that be on gun reforms?
Could you just slowly repeat that question? Sorry. My hearing is bad.
Could you just speak about the importance of governments moving quickly on reform, whether that be anti-hate speech or whether that be gun laws?
How quick they should be? Well, they should be as quick as the circumstances require. Make your own mind up about that.
And can I also ask, what happened to your Luger? What happened to the Luger?
What happened to the Luger?
Yeah.
We kept it because the police judged it was not a weapon anymore. It was so heavily rusted and battered.
Mr. Howard, Jewish Australians say they don't feel safe in our country.
Well, that makes me feel ashamed.
As a former leader of Australia, what does it say about us?
Well, it says a lot of content. It means we have failed in our obligation to a part of our community. And I'm ashamed of that. And part of that failure has to be, a big part of it has to be taken by the leaders. I've been critical of Mr. Albanese. I was critical of... why didn't Penny Wong properly pay her respects to the State of Israel when she went there? By visiting the area most heavily invested by the Hamas invasion. But there's no answer to that, because there isn't. One more question, then we better go.
So you stood up to the gun lobby.
Would you just mind...
Mr. Howard, you stood up to the gun lobby after Port Arthur. Have they become too powerful again in Australia?
I don't allege that for a moment. that's a matter for governments to do with. I am in favour of any changes that make the laws more effective and tighter. But I repeat that the death toll at Bondi would have been infinitely greater if the weapons banned after Port Arthur had not been banned. Thank you.
You've been listening to Flashwire, powered by redmancari.com, where facts still matter and stories still mean something. If you believe in independent journalism with impact, hit subscribe and share this episode. Your support keeps truth alive.
Breaking. Verified. Australian. When the story breaks, we don't wait. We verify, explain, and bring you the facts straight from the source.
Now, Optus has clearly failed here. Optus have failed to put safety first.
Company Optus and its parent company Singtel offer commercial
discussions based as friends and trusting. And part of our discussions, informally as well as formally, has been
together. To be honest, so many countries that you wouldn't have even thought of it, they came together. The world has come together.
Now, we do need to draw a line in the sand when it comes to the protests that we continue to see in this country.
The Flashwire is your rapid response breaking news podcast, a stripped down, adrenaline-paced bulletin that drops minutes after major stories break. It's designed for listeners who want accuracy and speed, not noise. Think of it as the audio equivalent of a newsroom's red alert light turning on. Each episode runs under 5 minutes, short enough to drop between scrolls, but packed with verified updates, eyewitness info, expert sound bites, and a forward look at what happens next. No spin. No filler. Just what you need to know and what comes next.